Just a short time ago, I spoke with former Georgia Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who told me that he will testify in the next 48 hours before a grand jury in Atlanta. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has subpoenaed Duncan to testify about efforts by former President Donald J. Trump and his allies to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Duncan is now a CNN political commentator. And here is Duncan and what he told me earlier today about this subpoena and his plans to testify.
I did just receive notification to appear on Tuesday morning at the Fulton County Grand Jury, and I certainly will be there to do my part in recounting the facts. I have no expectations as to the questions, and I'll certainly answer whatever questions put in front of me, and certainly don't want to go any deeper than that to jeopardize or compromise the investigation. But look, for me, this is a story that is important for Republicans to hear, Americans to hear. Let's hear the whole truth and nothing but the truth about Donald Trump's actions and the surrounding cast of characters around him. We watched a series of events happen here that were tragic and untruthful. And he's got a chance to present these facts and say, hey, I didn't know what was going on, or I think what reality is going to be is they knew exactly what they were doing. And I think the interesting part to this indictment is different than the others, is that there's going to heavy signaling that there's going to be 12 plus co-conspirators. And these folks don't have the same level of loyalty they had to Donald Trump when he was trying to change the election outcome in 2020. And so it's going to be interesting to see which way they go. And, these are serious charges that are being signaled: racketeering, conspiracy, RICO. I mean, these are things really, kind of garnered for the mafia or the mob. And so we'll certainly see this get ratcheted up in the next few days.
All right, joining me right now to talk about these developments is Ben Ginsberg. He is a Republican election attorney, as well as Marshall Cohen here in D.C. Marshall, first to you, tell us about the significance of Duncan's announcement that he will testify before a grand jury this week.
Yeah, Frederica, his revelation on your show just a few hours ago means that we are almost at the critical moment of what we've been expecting and waiting for, frankly, for years since this investigation began, which is the moment likely starting on Monday when the district attorney, Fani Willis, will walk into the courthouse, meet with the grand jurors, and begin that presentation. Could be a 2-day presentation of the case. And she is expected in that presentation to bring in some key witnesses. And those witnesses have been told that they would be given a heads up, 48 hours notification before they need to arrive, before they need to appear. That's the news today, Fred, that Jeff Duncan, the former lieutenant governor, got that notification. It appears that all systems are go. Of course, this would be President Donald Trump's 4th indictment, and this would be he was already charged federally for his attempts across the country to subvert the 2020 election. This would be a state prosecution for specifically what he and many of his allies attempted but failed to do in Georgia, the Peach State, which he lost to President Joe Biden by about 0.2% of the vote. Fred?
And election attorney Ben Ginsberg with me now. This news of the former lieutenant governor receiving this notification came, and just moments later, we would see the former president, just as business as usual. They're appearing at the Iowa State Fair. That was the video that you were seeing of him moments ago. So what do you make of Duncan's expected appearance before the grand jury? How generally will it go? He was among more than 70 who testified before the grand jury, and now possibly just a handful will be called again to testify, by the DA, Fani Willis. What would be different now about this testimony?
Well, this is the process that they go through at the tail end. Is the actual charges are brought before the grand jury. It is an indictment comes next if the grand jury agrees with that, and grand juries generally do agree with prosecutors who bring charges like this and ask for indictments. I mean, the Georgia case is significant for 2 reasons. Number one, it is a state case, so that even if Donald Trump were being elected president, he can't pardon himself for a state prosecution. So in terms of the January 6 cases, Georgia stands alone. Of course, the second part of Georgia and Fulton County is that they do have a policy of generally granting cameras in the courtroom. So that while the Jack Smith cases are unlikely, will not be televised, this one in Georgia stands to be. So it is the window into January 6th that the American people may really see the most vividly.
And it's quite possibly then that the defense attorneys for the former president would try to file a motion that no cameras be present, just as they did in previous cases. What would be the possible outcome?
Well, that's an interesting question about whether they would want that or not. I mean, there is a theory, given Donald Trump's court schedule over the next 6 months at least, if not the next year, that in fact his political campaign may be the courtroom, and making the point through his attorneys, through the proceedings, that he is a persecuted victim. So it isn't immediately clear to me that Trump will ask for cameras to be excluded from the courtroom. But the likely outcome of this is Fulton County does generally allow cameras in the courtroom. And so I think you go by legal precedent and probably assume it will be televised.
So, Ben, you made an interesting point about, this would be the tail end of the investigation leading up to, the possible indictment, and that Mr. Duncan's testimony is part of that. Generally, how many other testimonies would be included in this final pitch to the grand jury before indictments are rendered?
That very much depends on the individual case and how the prosecutor wants to or thinks he or she needs to present the case to the grand jury. There is no formula on that. It is giving the grand jury a complete picture of the case for the grand jury to base its decision on whether to indict or not.
Okay. And Marshall, you did a great job earlier just helping people understand the totality of this investigation. While it seemed like it began with the recorded conversation, plea, if you will, from the former president to the Georgia Secretary of State, it blossomed into so much more. Can you once again kind of encapsulate all that this investigation has entailed?
Sure, Fred, and there is a lot. And as Ben said, it's up to the DA to present the case how she wants to. And in this situation, she kind of has made it clear that she's going to need 2 days. That's not so common. So that phone call that you mentioned, the infamous phone call between President Trump and Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, where he begged and pleaded with the Secretary of State to just find enough votes, one more than we need, so that I can win the state. That's what got this investigation started. But over the past 3 years, we have learned so much more about the rest of the plot to essentially, there's no other way to put it, steal the election from Joe Biden and hand it to Trump. There were so many other elements about the fake electors and the breach of a election system in Coffee County, Rudy Giuliani giving bogus claims of fraud to the state legislature. There is a lot here to chew on. Fred?
Indeed. Thank you so much. Marshall Cohen, Ben Ginsberg, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.